Hello, Brubs. We're back with Salem's Children by Mary Leader, a 1979 horror book which deals with some bizarre story of not Salem's Lot, but Salem, Mass, in relation to this story which takes place in Wisconsin somewhere. I think we're on chapter 23, 24. Of course, I'm wrong. Chapter 24. Yeah, though I walked through the valley of the shadow of death, I found myself repeating tonight verses I'd been taught to say when I was afraid of the dark. A fear I'd never conquered. More than ever, I deplored my widowhood. Each night when I was most vulnerable, must come the moment when I had to face life alone and all my weaknesses. Why had I quarreled with Greg? Where was he now? With Iris. I kept thinking of those moments in the cave, and then Christmas Eve. The gentle strength in his long, shapely hands, the warmth of him, the shy seriousness in his brown eyes. He was a complex man, outgoing at times, withdrawn into some internal conflict at others, and I longed to work it out with him, no matter how difficult. I felt overcome with loneliness and longing. Tears overflowed my lids. Sleep seemed hopeless. I threw off the bed covers and went down to the living room, busying myself with building up the fire, then sitting to muse in the big chair that faced it. I must have dozed off, for the next thing I knew, my heart was hammering as the doorbell rang. Macduff whined upstairs in Carrie's room and scratched on her door. "Lucian, what are you doing here at this hour?" I exclaimed, clutching my robe. It had been quite a while since our last encounter. "I could see your lights from my house, so I knew you must be awake," he said as he entered. "I was worried something might be wrong. Good Lord, Mitty, it's freezing in here. You're blue." And as he heaped fresh wood into the grate and rekindled the fire, I huddled on the sofa with my knees drawn up. It was nice to have someone show concern, to drive the shadows away. The irritation he always roused began to ebb. Right now I didn't want argument. I wanted solid solicitude. Pardon. "There, that's better," he said when the flames were licking the logs. He put his arm around me, letting the warmth flow from his body into mine. I made no resistance, but let my head droop wearily against his shoulder. "Where were you down here? Why were you down here in the cold?" Another crank call. "Did everybody know?" "Not tonight, thank heaven. I just couldn't sleep." But then I dozed off in spite of myself. I'd been thinking unhappy thoughts. "I'm afraid I just don't feel very well liked here. It's not only the calls, it's..." He sighed. "You've hardly conformed to Peacehaven standards, Mitty. It's not easy for them to accept an outsider, particularly when she stands in the way of progress." The book is so-so. Have you got your hands on The Alchemist before? I have like 5 copies. "But I have to be true to my beliefs, Lucian," I said stubbornly. He pulled me closer to him. "We'll talk about those another time," he said. "How is your work with the pageant coming? Are your girls ready for the 21st? The 21st of March had been chosen for the first general rehearsal and was to be a town holiday. The girls had been looking forward to working with the adults. "I hope the weather cooperates," he went on. "I've been talking with Greg." "Greg?" I could feel the adrenaline pumping in my veins, and I moved slightly away. "Yes, he came back yesterday. So did Iris." "Oh." I sat there listless as he outlined his plans for the pageant. The gallows scene, he said, should be staged up on Bishop's Bluff instead of in the park band show, where the rest would be played. The logistics of transferring a whole audience from the park to the bluff mystified me, but Lucian felt the people could move during the intermission, and that would give time for the sale of refreshments. There's only an old cow path to the bluff, I objected. That could be a problem, he conceded. However, Tyler Bishop has promised to construct a road to the proposed water tower. I jerked to attention. That hasn't been voted on yet? No, but Tyler says it's a cinch. Anyway, if the weather is favorable next week, you don't intend to go up there at this time of year. Why not? The Weather Bureau predicts a thaw. There's that marvelous old oak for a hanging tree, and then there's lumber from the old cabin that blew down. We could make a platform out of that, he continued, thinking out loud. Of course, if it warms up too much, it might be muddy. It might not be practical. I hope we stay in the nice warm city hall. So Greg was back and Iris too. It was too much a coincidence. Well, if that was the way things were, I could do nothing about it. I sat there passively as his hand stroked my arm. He pressed his lips to my forehead. Don't worry, we'll work it out. The gesture triggered a response in me. I needed affection so badly. I lay with my head on his shoulder, unresisting, as his mouth covered mine. Then his tongue forced my lips open. Oh no. His hand slipped inside my robe and found my breast beneath my nightgown. I caught his hand. I'm sorry, Lucian. I didn't mean it that way. I shouldn't have let you. I said no. He was upon me, bending me back against the sofa, tearing aside my robe. Are you out of your mind? I struggled away from him, but he wrestled me down and ripped open my gown. As he fumbled with the zipper, I managed to slip out from under him. Get out of here, I demanded, winding my robe about me. You, a man of God, you need someone, Mitty, and so do I. The trouble with you, my dear Submit, is that you're still a Puritan at heart. You surprise me. Daughter of a clergyman and widow of an actor, you must realize that we are all in the same profession. We give the people what they want, even if it's only an illusion. If it's only illusion. I was made in God's image, as was Jesus Christ, and you're not so old-fashioned you think he was sexless, do you? With all the female devotees he had, Mary Magdalene, Mary of Bethany, and who's to say he didn't sleep with the woman of Samaria? I made no attempt to conceal my disgust. You sound like third-rate porn. Now get out. Instead, he came at me again. His moist, cold hand caressed my neck, then tightened. I went rigid as the blood began to pound in my neck and temples. A wrong move on my part might make that hand close all the way. You don't really want me, I half whispered. You only want to master me. And I will, he murmured, backing me toward the sofa again. With a victorious jab, I drove my knee into his groin. He doubled over. People should know what you are. He gave an ugly laugh, but you won't tell them, will you? Because they'd never believe you. He was right, of course. Just don't ever come near me again, I spat at him. You're demonic, Lucian. Demonic, he asked, confused, running his hand over his forehead as if to brush the cobwebs away. What are you talking about, Mitty? The change in him was so abrupt, I was caught off guard. Rape, Lucian attempted. That is, I managed to stammer. What? He stared in disbelief, then smiled pityingly. Oh, my poor Mitty, I fear you've been working too hard. You must get some rest. I might have expected something like that out of Gladys, but you? I trust your hallucinations will soon pass. In the meantime, I promise not to tell anyone. He'd done it again. What were we saying there? Have you put your hands on them? What's your favorite video game? I don't play video games. I'm not a baby. How long is chapter 25? I'm going to read it regardless, but I'd like to know. 10 pages. Why is my nose itching so bad? Snitching, you bastard. All right, let's get on with chapter 25. Chapter 25. What page is this? 303. Get in there with ye, woman, and mind ye, dinner waste is honor's time. What's that say? Dinner waste is honor's time. Sheriff George Corwin ushered me roughly into the court chamber. Since I had sent word that I had a petition to present, I had expected the full panel of judges to be there, and had even been so rash as to hope that His Excellency, Governor Sir William Phipps, would be present, but only one member of the panel was there, the Chief Justice of the Court of Oyer and Terminer, whatever that is, Lieutenant Governor William Stoughton. He was clad in a robe of deep maroon velvet, with a collar of fine lace, and a narrow linen scarf knotted loosely at his throat. A black velvet skull cap crowned his flowing silver white hair. How vast the difference between How vast the difference between our stations. How had I once aspired to be the wife of such an aristocrat? Though surely I hadn't been in such low estate then as now, with my homespun gown grimed and torn, and my wrists and ankles fettered. Still, I had done my best to tidy my hair, and Barrett had brought me a fresh cap. Take care, buddy. The justice dismissed the sheriff with a curt nod, then contemplated me with solemn, deep-set eyes. You are surprised to see me here alone, he asked. I had thought Justice Sewell and the others would be here. And the other prisoners, Your Honor? They will be anon. But I wanted to talk to you alone, Mary. My heart fluttered. So he remembered me. All during the trial he had accorded me the same treatment as the others, giving no sign of recognition. After all, he had known Mary Town, not Mary Esty, and I mun be sore changed. Was't in his heart to render me mercy. Alas, there was no relenting in the stern countenance. Thank you, Your Honor, I replied, my hands clutching the document over which I had labored so diligently. Not in the hope of saving my life, but the lives of those yet to come to trial. Now, in the light of this unexpected turn of events, I dared allow myself a slight glimmer of hope. Mayhap he'd see the truth in what I had written, and thus the truth in me. I have drawn up a petition. Later, he waved it aside. I want you to know I'm not insensible to the memory we share. 'Tis with deep sorrow that I see the plight to which your sins have brought you. My prayers for your soul have not been answered. But all that's holy. I am a Christian and innocent of this crime, I burst out. Mary, Mary, he groaned, and for the first time I was aware of the struggling going on within him. Do not lie to me. I have the mark of your infamy upon me. He drew back the sleeve of his robe to display a faint white scar. Have ye not been free of smallpox all your life? I hope I was spared through the grace of God, not through the work of the devil, he remarked with asperity. Nay, with your honor, 'tis not the mark of Satan. 'Tis a thing of nature, and comes from God, though I know not how it works. His mouth drooped. The apple which Eve gave to Adam was a thing of nature, but it was evil. But let us to the point. I plead with you to confess your sins and be received back into the fold. I like not to sign your death warrant, Mary. I cannot confess to a lie. Better you condemn me to hang than God condemn my immortal soul, I cried. He dropped his head in his hands, then looked up at me again, his face drawn taut. Thou art beautiful yet, Mary. He'd fallen into the old form of address. I had not thought to find thee so after all these years. and thine eyes are innocent as a newborn lamb's. O God, he groaned, ramming his fist down on the table. How artfully the fiend disguises his own. He rang a small silver bell. I have done what I could. Bring in the prisoner, sheriff, he said as Corwin stuck his head through the door. As the accused filed in, Justice Samuel Sewell and the rest of the court entered by another door and took their places on either side of Stoughton. Dorcas stood just a bit in front of the other prisoners, her head high and defiance in her eyes. You have a statement you wish to make to the court, goodly whore. And that's a name, not a condemnation. The Chief Justice asked, Your Honor, curtsying, I wish to turn from my sinful ways. I have ne'er signed the devil's book, but I confess I have oft danced with the coven in the minister's meadow, as she, pointing at me, can well testify, for she were there, too, dancing with the black man and sucking his pizzle. What? What the fuck? She lies, I gasped. I was seeing a white hand wrestling my arm to the ground. Stoughton brought down his gavel. Be silent, woman. The irons cut into my wrists as Corwin jerked me back. Can you pay for the food the state has furnished you in prison? Sewell asked her. That I can. I pray for a little time to lead a life of good deeds and penance, she replied with cloying humility. Stoughton brought down his gavel again. Then let this woman be released when she has paid the proper indemnities. I was shaking with outrage. How could he believe her lies and turn his back on my innocence? Had our love been for naught? And now, Goody Esty, he addressed me coldly, you have a petition you wish read to the court. One moment, the Reverend Samuel Parris had risen in the courtroom, do we grant a hearing to a convicted witch? The Chief Justice threw him a saturnine glance. Why, yes, Mr. Parris, we must not deny any one of these miserable creatures a last chance for repentance. Thank you, Your Honor, I whispered, barely able to control my voice. I lifted the paper with difficulty, weighted down as my arms were by the shackles, and began to read. The humble petition of Mary Eastick unto His Excellencies Sir William Phipps, and to the honored judge and bench now sitting in judicature. My tongue stumbled over the word. In Salem, and the reverend ministers humbly sheweth that whereas your poor and humble petitioner being condemned to die, do humbly beg of you to take it in your judicious and pious considerations, that your poor and humble petitioner, knowing my own innocence, Bliced? Or is that blessed? What is that? Bliced be the Lord. I think that's supposed to be blessed. For it, and looking at Dorcas, seeing plainly the wiles and subtlety of my accusers, by myself cannot but judge charitably of others that are going ye same way of myself, if the Lord steps not mightily in. I was confined a whole month upon the same account that I am condemned now for, and then cleared by the afflicted persons, as some of your honors know. And in 2 days' time I was cried out upon by them, and have been confined, and am now condemned to die. The Lord above knows my innocence then, and likewise does now, as at the great day will be known to men and angels. I petition to your honors, not for my own life, for I know I must die, and my appointment time is set. Gazing straight at Stoughton, but the Lord, he knows it is that But the Lord, he knows it is that if it be possible, no more. Innocent blood may be shed, which undoubtedly cannot be avoided in the way and course you go in. I question not but your honors do to the utmost of your power in the discovery and selecting of witchcraft and witches, and would not be guilty of innocent blood for the world, but my own innocence. I know you are in the wrong way. The Lord, in his infinite mercy, directs you in this great work, if it be his blessed will that no more innocent blood be shed. I would humbly beg of you that your honors would be pleased to examine these afflicted persons strictly and keep them apart sometime, and likewise to try some of these confessing witches. With a glance towards Dorcas, I being confident there is several of them has belied themselves in others, as will appear. If not in this world, I am sure in the world to come. Are they trying to make her illiterate, or I mean, what is this? Whither I am now a going, and I question not, but you'll see an alteration of these things. They say myself and others, having made a league with the divil, we cannot confess. I know, and the Lord knows, as will shortly appear, they belie me, and so I question not, but they do others. The Lord above, who is the searcher of all hearts, knows that as I shall answer it at the tribunal seat, that I know not the least things of witchcraft. Therefore I dare not belie my own soul. I beg you, honors, not to deny this my humble petition from a poor dying innocent person, and I question not but the Lord will give a blessing to your endeavors. Before I finished, the afflicted girls had come in, and now Rowan ran to me and threw white powder in my eyes. Gregory Town rose from the judge's bench. Petition denied, he roared. He held out his arm to Dorcas. No, Iris. And they waltzed out of the room as he shouted, Petition denied. Petition denied. It was past noon when I awoke, the weight of the iron still on my wrist. Dana had taken Carriad to her house so I could catch up on the sleep I'd lost after Lucian's visit the night before. I dressed and went over to pick her up. When the ancient brass knocker failed to bring an answer, I shoved the door open and walked in. The wooden floors reverberated under my feet as I went from room to room. Unwashed luncheon dishes in the sink loomed ominously. Dana was meticulous about such things. I opened the door to the cellar, but it was completely dark. After finding the bedrooms on the second floor empty, I remembered the secret room that could be reached only by a hidden stair leading out of the back parlor. I retraced my steps and opened the cupboard door in the chimney, which was supposed to be a storage place for wood, but as in Hawthorne's house, had a false back, beyond which were rickety, hand-hewn steps leading to the upper rooms. Something caught at my hair. I darted back, laughed shakily as I lifted a gray kitten down from the mantel. Phantom, you imp! I scolded and set him down near the battered ball of yarn that was his plaything. At the top of the stairs, I knocked at the heavy door, reluctant to simply walk in. Dana had never invited me up here, so I had no desire to violate her privacy. But when there was no answer, I turned the knob and entered. The only light in the room came from one small diamond-paned window, and at first I thought the chamber was empty, but then with a start I saw Dana kneeling at a low altar that was draped in fine, dun-colored buckskin, beaded and fringed. A fur pouch handsomely trimmed with quill work, lay on the top, at either end of which was a low burning candle. Above on the wall hung a natural crucifix of a gnarled branch that had grown over another to form a cross with the twisted torso of a crucified man. Next to that was a large turtle shell decorated with designs done in red clay. A Mandan totem, I remembered. Dana took no notice of my entrance, but continued to move her lips soundlessly over a small clay figure in her hand. Allison staring up at me in miniature. Strands of gray hair sprouting from the top of the head were fashioned into a figure eight at the back of the neck. Draped loosely about the body was a flowing silk caftan of Moorish design in shades of blue, red, and gold on a white background, made from a swatch of the material used in a real caftan Dana had sewn for Allison. I groped for the wall to steady myself. In that moment of shock, my mind reverting to the stereotype of witch, which connoted only evil. Was Dana a witch draining Allison's life away? Was she behind the phone calls? Had she made the wax image of me? It was there, too, on a shelf, wrapped in plastic. And where was Carrion? Still, Dana seemed not to be praying to the doll, but for it, and for the woman it represented. She raised her eyes to the rough crucifix, pulled back her blouse from her shoulder, and uttered a hoarse cry that made me reel to my knees. Red flames leaping from Allison's image entered Dana's body with such a jolt that she fell backward. An ugly red mark spread its tentacles across her bare shoulder just above the left breast, growing darker until it was almost black. Just as quickly, it was gone. Dana lay still a moment, then sat up slowly, seeing me for the first time. I didn't mean to intrude, I stammered. I was looking for Cariad and couldn't find anybody. It is no matter, she said, brusquely, buttoning her blouse, then anxiously. You won't tell, will you? If people here were to know, I could not finish what I have started to do. Just what is that? I wasn't sure I wanted her to finish either. And where is my baby? I had to steel myself against the hurt in her eyes as she answered simply. Dr. Bruin took her, and Mother carried her for a drive. They should be back soon. As for this, she picked up the miniature, Allison, I cannot talk about it even to you. I only beg you to trust me, not to betray me. I was confused and appalled to find her practicing anything so primitive as image magic. She saw my hesitation. It is not as you think, she assured me. The poppet has no power. It only helps me to visualize as I meditate. Why have you kept that? Why have you kept the one of me? Because whoever made it wanted it destroyed and wanted to destroy you. I shook my head. How can an intelligent woman like you believe that the destruction of a doll could affect me? The doll is nothing, she answered. It is only a lump of wax. It is their belief in it, their hate, that I fear. But I have another reason for keeping it as evidence in case we find out who's making the calls. She still read doubt in my face. As you can see, the workmanship in the two dolls is very different. It was a good point. Dana's workmanship was superior, but about Allison I began, still unconvinced. She gripped my arm. Already Allison is healing, but no one must know of this. Will you keep my secret? I nodded numbly as the front door banged, announcing the return of Dr. Bruin and the others. Will you stay? She asked. I told her I must meet Rowan when she returned from school. Carrie was fast asleep when I took her from Dr. Bruin's arms. As I walked home, I wondered if Dr. Bruin had ever been up in Dana's chapel, and if so, what he thought of it. But I couldn't ask him. I had given my word. The phone was ringing as I entered the back hall. My first instinct was to ignore it, but what if Rowan was calling? Balancing Carrie on the kitchen counter, I answered. When are you going to listen to us, Mitty? What if the same thing should happen to your daughter that happened to Susie and Nancy? Move away, Mitty. If you love your daughter, move away. There was a stealthy click, then the dial tone, then a recording saying, "If you'd like to make a call, please hang up and try again." And still I stood there, mesmerized, my right arm clutching Mary until the phone began hurling insults at me. I might have remained there longer but for a scratching at the back door. A small white rectangle had been shoved underneath. I picked it up and turned it over. My cry of horror awakened Carrie, who began to wail. It was a snapshot of Rowan. Someone had bloodied her with a felt tip pen. I ran to the window just in time to see Jonah Good lumbering into the woods. Is this the Red Meridian? No. No. It is Salem's Children. So far, there's been, I guess the children are the ones being killed. They make it like the children were going to be the witchcraft. That's it, unless somebody pays me $368 trillion to continue. Otherwise, I need to go shower and go to sleep. How many more pages are left? 313 to about 40 some pages, 50 pages, maybe 60. Yeah, the next chapter is way too long. Not reading it. All right, bros. Any last words?